Yeah, that's not supposed to be that way. And later in the video, we're gonna fix that problem, but for now, let's head outside. So we got the 18T all out to be cleaned up, as well as all of our other equipment. I have to mention it, the sun is out, and for the first time this year, I can say, feels like it's spring, which is great. Most people would say that. I would probably tell you it just feels like race season is here upon us for sure. But it's about 8:30 right now. I got my day started about 4:15 this morning, got a great workout in, got some breakfast, did some video editing, and now I'm down here at the race shop to get our operation all cleaned up and turned around so we can head to the Tulare ThunderBowl this Friday and Saturday. I think most times people naturally complain about Mondays after, you know, a fun weekend of action, and then it's time to go back to work or some sort of task to take on, which most times I would agree with you. Sometimes Mondays suck, they're long, they're dreaded, it takes time to get through it, but mine so far not off to a bad start, and I think we're gonna have a really productive day. So all of our preparation before we wash is complete. Got all the important areas all covered up on this Ryder 410 engine. You can see the covers up here and the covers here on the side where the exhausts go. And some of that footage you probably saw my dad, John. He really likes to be the one that does anything with the engine to make sure it's done 100% correctly and how he likes it done. So we're gonna get started with the car, and as usual, we just stripped all the panels off of it, all the tires. The more bare it is, the easier it is to wash, especially in all the different cracks and crevices throughout this machine. So we'll do the car first, and then we will move to everything else on the grass. See, once we finish washing, the process of it all is not over. We don't just go right into maintenance. I always try to be thorough with drying the car off, and most of that is dealing with the engine, as we're not trying to get any water in it. So I dry them first, and then I spray WD in the injection. Then we're gonna take these covers off, then spray a little WD-40 in there. Then we take a 5/8 socket on a ratchet, and we're gonna remove all the spark plugs. So now with the plugs out, we can put the car in gear, and it should easily turn over. And then if any water did get in any of the cylinders, it should come out when we back it down here through that spark plug hole. Didn't look like much really came out, which is a good thing. And usually if anything comes out, it's just the WD that we sprayed in. But that kind of wraps up our washing process. I'm not sure how many teams also back down the engine like we do to make sure there's no water inside. That's how I was taught, and that's kind of how I just continue to do it with our family operation. I feel like taking that extra step just to do things right is the only way to go, you know, with how much my family invests, how much I invest, how much my sponsors put into this, my fans that watch us. The least we can do is properly take care of our equipment and make sure it's ready to go fast. So we're just a little later in the day, and everything is all finished up. And I finished in perfect timing, because if you look, I think there might be a storm rolling in. Which I like a good storm, but I'm gonna get all this inside and out of the weather, and then we will be able to begin our maintenance. So Dad helped me get the 18T inside, and now I'm gonna start on some of our maintenance. Up first, I'm gonna re-grease the bird cages in the rear and the front kingpins and everything in the assembly in the front. And this job is fairly simple. You just slide the end of your grease gun over the Zerk fitting, and it fills that bearing inside the bird cage with grease. And I usually like to rotate it once to try to get some grease on both ends of it. Now the front is the exact same process. So all 4 corners of the car are now done. Dad just made it in the race shop. What are you working on?
Servicing the injectors. Nozzles.
Dad's
getting the nozzles.
Dad's getting ready to do all the nozzles. Both of us have been working hard all day. So there's 4 nozzles on each side. He's basically gonna take them out, and then what, you're gonna put them in the sonic cleaner?
Yep.
That cleans them thoroughly, and then we inspect them again, maybe run them twice, and then put them back in the engine. While he's doing that, I'm gonna move on to servicing the torque ball, which sits right in between my legs. Now, maintaining the torque ball on a sprint car is one of the more simple jobs. You basically loosen the 4 aluminum nuts, pull it back, and then you re-grease the torque tube itself and the top part of the ball that slides into the housing that protects that U-joint from your legs. But this is something we take very seriously just because it's in the cockpit. I mean, you take everything seriously on your car, but something like this is, you know, high risk for a driver if it were to fail and not do its job. So we always really stay on top of the maintenance program every night or every other night. And once you're done, this is how it should spin freely. See that? That's nice. And when your car's sitting on the ground, if your ball does not spin like that, there's something bound up in the rear end or just in this area of the car that is throwing the alignment off and just makes it to where it will not spin. So I just took the bars in the back out, and I missed this while I was washing. Maybe when I hit the wall on Saturday, or somehow the inside of the rod end broke out from the rod end. Must have been when I tapped the wall or something. So I wanted to stop you guys real quick. I kind of got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, did I really hit the wall hard enough for this to happen? So here's my contact with the wall. You guys will say if you think this was enough for it to completely knock out the center of the Heim. And that's all it was. That's all it was right there. In slow motion. That's all it was. That is crazy. All it was that little tap, which, I mean, I did hit the wall, so anything's possible for things to happen just the right way at just the right time. But, you know, I mean, I've like legitimately crashed before, and I don't think we've even had that happen where it just like wallered out the inside of it, and then the right rear arm was just flapping, you know, the rest of the race. And it's very possible that it did not happen in that moment, and, you know, maybe it was a faulty part, but I just don't have an explanation for how it happened. That's crazy. I don't think I've ever had that happen before. And now everything makes sense because I just had it on blocks when I was doing this, and I was checking to see where we ended up for turns and weight in both corners, and like it was completely off from where it should be, and then I looked down and noticed that, and I'm like, oh, that's why. So yeah, I'm gonna fix that, but that's not good. All right, it's the next day now, and here is how we are gonna fix our issue. It's very simple. We have the right rear arm, which I unscrewed the rod end, and then I have our spare right rear arm, which is built to the exact length that this one was made up to be, so the rear end was square. And then here on the table, we have our King Radius Rod Builder tool, which you can also use for rear arms. So we take the spare one, which is built to the correct length, and we're gonna put it on here, just like that. See what it measures to. And then to also make my job easier, I'm gonna count how many threads are showing on that one and try to line it up perfectly on this one. So you're not gonna be able to tell, but this is the spare. This is the one that came off the car that I just rebuilt, and I think they're pretty dang close. So I'm gonna put it back on the car, put it together, and then see how close to square we are with the rear end. So before we put our rear stops on, instead of having the car on setup blocks, I'm gonna grab the blocks that we square the car with, and putting it on those will allow us to check and make sure the rear end is square and that nothing is in a bind or the measurement is just, it's not adding up.
I'm gonna say it's within a 16th. It's that one's off an 1/8. This one's off a 16th.
Well, this sucks. My dad and I just checked to see where the rear end is at, and it's just forward on both sides, but more the left rear than anything, and like forward enough to where it's too much. And I'm already pretty like critical on the rear end being like absolutely perfect. Like, I mean, it's gotta be so close. And my dad is the exact same way. So since we're here in the shop, if we were at the races in the middle of the night, it's one thing, but right now we need to do things right. So I'm gonna disconnect everything, and then I'm gonna try to move it around, and we're gonna try to get it closer and then readjust the arms and the radius rods to make sure we can get our bird cages level and where they need to be, and just the whole process. Just get it to where everything looks how it does now, but back like 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more.
It's fine.
There we go. Well, we are all loaded up, and it is 3:36 on this Wednesday afternoon, and everything is done. So about, 55-ish hours after we started working for the week, you guys kind of saw a glimpse of our chaos. Racing in California on back-to-back weekends, makes our work time much shorter because we have to leave a day early just to make it down to the races. So luckily we didn't have, too many extra problems. You guys kind of saw what we had to deal with that right rear arm, which led to us, re-squaring the rear end. Other than that, it was kind of just normal maintenance, and my dad and I were able to kick it all out. So we're ready to head down to the Tulare ThunderBowl this weekend, the Dennis Roth Classic, 2 nights at Tulare, $18,000 to win. This race is kind of turning into a crown jewel 410 show in California. Last year it was $8,300 to win. This year I think it's $18,300 and something dollars, which is a very good payday no matter what you're racing. And I kind of feel like it would only be right if the number 18 it took home 18 grand. That has a really good ring to it. So sigh of relief, get some rest tonight, head out tomorrow down to California and be ready to rip Friday and Saturday at Tulare. That's a place that we've never won before, but we've had success, we've had speed. You guys all remember night number 2 of Trophy Cup in 2022 where we almost won a prelim night. So we've sniffed victory lane, and now we're just hoping to finally park it down there. So we'll see you guys all at the races this weekend. Deuces.